and I walked past the glass conference room and saw them cheering, actually raising champagne flutes at 9:12 a.m. I knew they thought I was dead. Not literally, just removed, archived, filed under old software. Which is funny, considering I was the one who wrote the damn software they were now selling for a $1 billion payday. My coffee hadn't even cooled yet. I stood there, invisible as ever, watching my name float on the giant screen behind them. System integration credits, Clara H., legacy contributor. Legacy, the corporate version of a eulogy. No one said my last name. No one invited me in, just a blur of suits clapping like they hadn't buried me under a decade of ignored emails and idea theft, so I walked on. Past the interns who never made eye contact. Past the awards wall where my name had been etched twice, and quietly replaced by the Team Excellence plaque. I went to the basement. Yes, the basement, storage, forgotten printers, dead routers, and the one place no exec had ever stepped, server room B. I still had clearance. They'd never revoked it, probably assuming I wouldn't know how to wield it, but ghosts never forget where the wires live. I reached the old server that hadn't been touched since our first expansion to Seoul, pulled off the dusty cover, and there, buried in the audit logs, was my clause. Quiet and dormant like a landmine in the wrong war. Article 14.7c, Operational Software Authorship entitles veto and signatory rights to system-level corporate reallocation. It was supposed to be ceremonial, a footnote, except they didn't read it, they never do, so I updated the internal ledger. Not forged, just unlocked. Like a door I was always allowed to open but never dared. Back upstairs. I passed Keen's assistant, Hannah. She didn't recognize me even though I trained her. Twice. She was too busy texting something about brunch post-close. And then came the twist, a ping on my phone. Request for signature, merger execution file Virelix Systems. Sent to me by legal, automatically. Because the system now listed me as the primary authorizing party. That's when it hit me like a hit-and-run epiphany. They'd sold the company without realizing I had the final pen. The entire merger hinged on me. I leaned against the wall outside the boardroom. Their voices bled through the glass, slurred laughter, nervous negotiation, Keen barking about tech stack compliance. The door opened, and Lawrence Keen, silver-tongued overlord of quarterly manipulation, stepped out and froze. His eyes widened like a man seeing a ghost. And in a way, he was. Clara, he said, voice pinched. I didn't know you were still with the company. I'm not, I said, tucking my phone away. I'm in the company. He didn't laugh, just stared. We need your sign-off, he said eventually. His voice was different now. Soft, coated with panic. I reached into my bag, slowly, like drawing a weapon. My Montblanc pen caught the light like a blade. I unscrewed the cap, raised my brow, and said, let's renegotiate. The silence that followed could have sliced drywall. Keen blinked like a man rebooting. Clara, he said again, this time with that oily CEO grin he used on investor calls and interns too fresh to know better. We're on a tight timeline here. The Virelix reps flew in last night. Our valuation, your valuation? I interrupted, tapping the pen against my palm, is built on code I wrote in a janitor's closet while y'all were busy installing espresso machines and hiring motivational speakers. He laughed. Wrong move. It sounded like a balloon deflating through a pinhole. Look, whatever this is, it's a legally binding clause, I said, stepping into the conference room, that gives me co-signing rights on any transfer of proprietary tech. You all signed off on it when you annexed my team's division and renamed it the Digital Optimization Hub. I watched their faces fall like soufflés in a stampede. There was Sandra, the head of strategic synergies, who once pitched my original platform under her name while I sat in the same room. She was clutching her mug like it was full of poison instead of pumpkin chai. There was Doug, HR's finest political chameleon, who once said, let's loop Clara in for notes after the decks are final. And of course, Virelix's people, 3 smug men in tailored navy, all quietly wondering why the woman in flats was holding a grenade with a smile. Keen coughed. Okay, let's be adults. What do you want, Clara? I didn't sit. I wanted them to look up for once in their lives. First, a formal memo, public, acknowledging that the primary system architecture and its evolution over the last decade came from my designs, underpaid, uncredited, and undocumented, because you all preferred the illusion of teamthink. A beat of silence. Second, I continued, you don't touch my people. You don't lay off the legacy engineers who stayed behind when the world moved to mobile first and microservices. They are in this building right now eating microwave ramen and praying their badge still works next quarter. Sandra muttered something, probably a prayer to the god of branding. And third, I said, now fully enjoying the way Keen's lips curled, I get a seat at the post-merger board. Voting rights, full transparency, and I get to approve the final system reallocation roadmap, or none of this gets signed. Keen stepped closer, lowering his voice like we were lovers sharing a secret instead of 2 colleagues who hadn't spoken in years. You're hijacking this deal. I'm honoring the contract, I said, softer, the one you were too arrogant to read. The room shifted. Power has a scent. Fear has a sound. It was all there now, thick and ripe. Then, right on cue, the unexpected. A knock, the door opened. And in walked a woman I hadn't seen in 6 years, Lena NG, my old co-lead, one who disappeared after a very public personal leave following her whistleblower report mysteriously vanishing from the compliance server. She looked straight at me, then held up her phone. "You're not the only one who kept receipts," she said. And just like that, the room cracked. I didn't move, just stared at Lena like I was looking at a ghost I never buried right. She looked the same, clean-cut, calm, crisp gray suit with boots that meant business. Her hair was shorter, sharper, her jaw tighter, but her eyes, still volcanic, still full of fire they'd tried to drain dry. Keen's mouth opened, then did something strange. It twivered, not quite a twitch, not quite a shiver, just the subtle death rattle of a man watching his kingdom sprout termites. "Lena," he croaked, "you were on leave. Indefinite leave." She held up her phone again, tilting it so we all saw the screen, an archived thread of encrypted emails, complete with compliance case IDs, whistleblower memos, timestamps, and God bless her, 3 audio files labeled Q4 MGMT call Keen MP3, HR memo redact, and Sandra voicemail panic. The room went full morgue silent. Lena smiled without warmth. "Indefinite leave ended when you tried to merge fraudulently with a foreign entity using IP you don't fully own." One of the Virelix men, tie too tight, face too smooth, cleared his throat and leaned forward. "I'm sorry," he said, tone suddenly clipped and cold. "Is what she's saying true?" Keen did what he always did under pressure. He lied. "This is a misinterpretation of outdated policy. We've cleared all proprietary questions with legal." Clara's position here is symbolic, wrong word. Symbolic, I echoed, each syllable dipped in arsenic. Like my unpaid overtime, my name on the architecture files they removed from the version control logs. Like Lena's internal report you marked non-actionable before HR deep-sixed her access? Doug, the HR lizard, swallowed so hard I heard it. Keen's face flushed, red, then pale, then that weird corporate beige that only appears when someone's job is clinging to life support. "What do you want, Lena?" Lena pulled out a chair, finally. Sat next to me like no time had passed. "I want reinstatement. Full title, back pay with interest. And I want your little NDA about the South Korea licensing shell invalidated, because guess what? I already sent it to the DOJ." Sandra dropped her mug. It didn't even shatter. Just thunked on the carpet, sad and anticlimactic. Keen turned to me. "You planned this." "No," I said, crossing my arms. "You did. When you made sure the only women in this company with teeth had to grow fangs just to survive. That hit something primal." Keen's face folded. The first time in a decade, he looked scared. The Virelix reps whispered among themselves now, exchanging glances like people watching a train that might derail right into their bonus packages. Then, because fate has a taste for drama, my phone buzzed again. "Incoming call, Mason Riley, board chair." I held it up for them all to see. "Looks like your babysitter's calling." Keen stepped toward me, desperate now. "Clara, listen, let's talk privately." "No," I said. "Let's finish this publicly." And I answered, "Hi, Mason. Yes, we've hit a complication." Mason's voice came through like gravel in a blender, too polished to be real, too calm to be clean. "Clara, I'm hearing chatter. Tell me this isn't what it looks like." "What does it look like, Mason?" I asked, still staring directly at Keen, who was now sweating through a $5,000 shirt like he'd been dropped in a sauna full of auditors. He hesitated. "Looks like someone just hijacked a merger the board has spent 6 quarters negotiating." "No hijack," I replied coolly. "Just a compliance delay. Turns out your little golden goose forgot who laid the damn egg." The room stirred the way a poker table does when someone throws in a chip that shouldn't exist. Lena leaned toward the phone, calm as ever. "Hi, Mason. Lena NG here, back from the dead. Would love to chat sometime about the offshore restructuring you greenlit after my report disappeared." Mason didn't reply, but the silence, that silence was screaming. Then he said, "Put me on speaker." I did. "Lawrence," Mason said, voice tighter now. "Why wasn't Clara listed as an approver on the merger flowchart?" Keen tried to summon his CEO voice, but it came out strained like someone yanking a wet rope. "It was a clerical error. You assumed the legacy systems weren't. You assumed." Mason cut in, "and now we're all looking down the barrel of a contract breach." That landed hard. One of the Virelix men muttered something into his phone. The tallest one, beard guy, stood and stepped out, probably calling corporate counsel. Doug looked ready to throw up into his lap. Mason exhaled. "Clara, you now have full negotiating power." I smiled. "Oh, I know." Keen looked like he might faint or swing. I wouldn't have minded either, honestly. "But if you're about to pull a power play," Mason continued, "do me a favor and remember this isn't just about him. This is about the company, the shareholders, the employees." "Oh, I remember the employees," I said. "I remember the Christmas where you gave everyone stress balls while I rewrote 30,000 lines of code overnight because your VP nuked the QA pipeline during his vacation." Mason had the audacity to chuckle. "Noted. Just don't burn the house down. Renovate it." I hung up. Keen opened his mouth. I raised a hand, "Sit," and for the first time in 10 years he did. Lena stood, "Let's talk deal points." But then the fire alarm went off. Every light turned red. Sirens shrieked. Keen's face drained. "That's not a drill." Virelix beard guy ran back in. "There's a breach in server room A. Firewall's gone. It's all crashing." And that's when I understood. This wasn't coincidence. This was sabotage. And someone else was playing a much bigger game. I didn't even flinch. just stood there while the sirens screamed like they'd caught the scent of guilt. Lena looked at me, eyes narrowing. We both knew the layout. Server room controlled the real-time backups and compliance snapshots. Anything wiped there could vanish into plausible deniability forever. Keen was already moving, rushing out the door like a roach who smelled the lights coming on. Call IT. He barked at no one in particular. Secure the vault, lock down the tunnels. Tunnels? Lena caught that too. She shot me a look. You heard that? I nodded. Then calmly followed Keen down the hallway, Montblanc pen still in my hand like a weapon I hadn't used yet. He was fast for a man in fear, but fear always makes mistakes. He swiped his badge at the sub-level access, but fumbled the second door. Lena slid her own long-dead ID beside his, overriding the lockout. You never revoked my clearance, she said, rookie mistake. The elevator opened to the sub-basement with a groan that sounded like a warning. The lights flickered. Someone had killed redundancy power. Below us, a hallway that didn't exist on the blueprints anymore. This was the part of the building they swore got repurposed. Renovated, where they used to say old servers went to die. But I remembered the original schematics. I remembered everything they tried to erase. Lena whispered, this place was scrubbed 5 years ago. No, I said, it was hidden. The hallway reeked of ozone and burning plastic. Somewhere nearby, a cooling fan was failing in rhythmic death rattles. We walked until the red glow of the alarm lights gave way to a single flickering overhead bulb. And there, in the middle of the room, standing like a man caught red-handed by his own ghost, was Malik, my former protege, the one I trained, the one who left 3 years ago for better offers, the one who'd always asked the right questions and watched too closely when the wrong people answered. He didn't look surprised to see us, just disappointed. Clara, he said, his voice smooth, like he'd been practicing this moment. I warned you once, if you don't sell your legacy, someone will bury it. Lena stepped in front of me. You disabled our firewall? I repurposed it, Malik said, gesturing to a jerry-rigged laptop wired directly into the cooling node. I'm not the villain, I'm just adapting. Virelix was never buying the company. They were buying the data, behavioral modeling, user telemetry. The rest is window dressing. And the breach, I asked, cold as steel. The outage, cover story, plausible deniability. Once the merger signs, it's gone. The logs, the rights, the system trail, scrubbed. And the company, gutted for its parts. You're not a partner in this story, Clara. You're an antique. I stepped closer, breathing slow, then I smiled. You think I came down here to stop you? Malik blinked. I pulled out a small drive from my pocket. I came down here to watch you confess. The blinking red light on my pen lit up. It was recording the whole time. Malik froze, just for a second. But it was the kind of freeze that happens when a man realizes the chessboard he built is upside down. He's already in check. His lips parted, but Lena was faster. Smile for the camera, she said, tapping her phone. We're live streaming to a legal node in Zurich. Encrypted, time-stamped, jurisdiction-proof. You think that'll hold up? Malik snapped, voice slipping. You think a board built on insider trading and shell deals is going to let you two righteous dinosaurs tank a billion-dollar play? Lena didn't blink. They don't have to let us. You already did it yourself. Behind him, the screen showed cascading file names, data being siphoned, redirected. Malik's last act of defiance still chewing through the backbone of a company he claimed to outgrow. I turned my pen off. One beep. One click. You were brilliant, I said. You could have rewritten the rules with us. Instead, you tried to erase the map. Like every man who thinks the system owes him a crown, Malik's eyes flared. They do owe me. I built the behavioral engine that predicted user retention to a 94% accuracy rate. I streamlined a model so profitable, it could replace every one of your damn departments. You did, I said softly. But you also left a backdoor in the payment system that rerouted $2.3 million to a Cayman shell you thought was untraceable. His face collapsed. I know, I said, because I helped design that payment system. You copied the structure. You didn't know I embedded ghost pings. Ghost pings, Lena said, catching on. Heartbeat packets disguised as invoice validations, not visible unless you know where to look. Malik lunged for the laptop. Lena moved faster, slamming her heel into the side panel. Sparks flew, the screen cracked, the laptop died. I stepped back. Then the overhead lights flickered again and everything went black, total silence. A darkness so deep it erased outlines. Then a voice, raspy, mechanical, cut through the black, intrusion flagged. Emergency shutdown sequence initiated. Malik screamed, actual fear. The kind that comes from knowing you're not in control anymore. A dull hum began to build like servers winding up to scream. And then the failsafe kicked in. Old school, analog. A lock clicked shut behind us. System override authorized by Clara H., the voice said. Redundancy vault engaged. We were sealed in. Lena looked at me. What did you just do? I rerouted the last firewall, I whispered. We're inside the proof vault now. Only I can open it. Malik stumbled against the door. You'll destroy everything? No, I said, turning toward the vault terminal. I'm going to decide what survives. And behind us, a single backup server buzzed to life. The only untouched node in the entire system. My system, my story. They were all about to learn what happens when the ghost in the hallway takes off her sheet and shows her fangs. The server purred like a sleeping dragon, ancient, alive, and pissed. Its green light blinked in sync with my heartbeat as I typed in the override sequence. Not fast, not showy, just precise, like a surgeon carving through rot. Behind me, Malik was panting in panic, pacing like a man in a box filling with water. You can't do this. You don't get to play God. Clara, I didn't even look at him. Funny. You were happy to play devil until someone flipped the script. Lena moved to the vault door, inspecting the lock. We have maybe 15 minutes before someone upstairs realizes the override was manual and not a malfunction. Maybe 10 before they try to override your override. They won't get through, I said. I buried the master access behind a dead employee ID, Debbie from IT. Rest her soul. Lena smirked. Always liked Debbie. Malik slammed a hand against the metal. You're not thinking? If this gets out, if Zurich goes public, if DOJ connects me to the Virelix tunnels, it won't just sink me. It'll crater the merger. The board will liquidate. Hundreds of jobs were already on the chopping block, I snapped. Don't pretend you suddenly grew a conscience. You wanted this scorched. You just didn't expect the match to be in my hand. He looked at me now, for real, like he was seeing the version of me I'd locked in a drawer 10 years ago. The one who stopped raising her hand because the room never listened. Why now, he asked. Why not let it die like everything else they stole from you? I turned slowly, the fluorescent light humming above us like a judgment. Because I remembered something this morning, I said, when I saw my name listed as legacy contributor. I remembered that I never stopped building, even when they stopped noticing. Lena raised her phone, live feed still rolling, and because now the world's watching. I moved to the data fork terminal, the one Malik had tried to infect with his sabotage code. I scanned his module, layered, elegant, devastating. He'd rigged it to erase all contract trails, IP authorship, source commits, like none of us had ever existed. I pulled up the kill switch prompt. Wait, Clara, don't stop, I said, not unkind. Just done. Then I pressed execute. Server coughed, buzzed, spat sparks. Then it began restoring. Line by line, version by version, every hidden commit, every internal memo, every call log scrubbed by Keen's team rebuilt. On screen, the architecture tree bloomed like a resurrection. My name, Lena's name, the buried engineers who died anonymous in footnotes. Every single thread of the company's true legacy lit up like a constellation. This, I whispered, is what survives. Behind me, Malik sank to the floor. Cry, he just deflated, like a balloon finally giving up on being full of hot air. Then another ping from Lena's phone. She glanced at it, then her jaw dropped. They're arresting Keen, she said. DOJ picked him up outside the Virelix suite. Live, cuffed, I smiled, not because it felt good, but because it felt finished. Malik's voice broke. So what now? You run the company? No, I said, I rewrite it. And the vault doors hissed open. Light flooded in. Above us, the building was burning. But down here, history was rebooting. We stepped into the light like survivors crawling out of a bunker, except this time we were the warheads. The moment the elevator opened onto the executive floor, the silence was surgical. Not the awkward kind, but the silence that says, something nuclear just went off and no one's sure if they're still employed. Phones buzzed. Security whispered. Sandra from Strategic Synergies was openly weeping into a Starbucks sleeve, while Beard Guy from Virelix stared at his iPad like it had betrayed him. The boardroom was empty. Keen's chair still spun gently, like it hadn't accepted the arrest yet. On the wall, the merger presentation had frozen mid-slide. Seamless future through consolidation. I stepped inside, Lena at my side, and the room turned like we'd walked in holding a guillotine. Mason appeared on the wall screen from New York. His tie was gone. His hairline had receded another inch in the last hour. Clara, he said, the world's on fire. I know, I said, I lit the match. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. The DOJ has Keen. Virelix is walking. Their legal team's already issuing clawback threats, and you've made yourself the face of the company overnight. I nodded. Good. People should know who actually built it. Mason squinted. Realize you just vaporized every legacy clause, every artificial valuation, every inch of that inflated merger? Yes, I said, and you've got a plan? I handed him a digital folder through the secure feed, revised structure, new IP protection stack, whistleblower protections, back pay distributions, and a public-facing platform to credit every unacknowledged contributor from the last 15 years. No more ghosts. He opened it, read silently. His brows climbed halfway up his forehead. This is radical, he muttered, but it might actually work. Lena stepped forward. We'll make it work. Because this time, the people who built the damn machine get to decide what it runs for. Mason looked straight at me. And you? What do you want, Clara? I paused. Looked out the floor-ceiling windows where morning was bleeding in like a second chance. I want a board seat, I said, with full veto power over future acquisitions. I want Lena reinstated as Chief Integrity Officer with a direct line to the board and press. And I want a burn clause added to all executive contracts. If they try to bury another employee like me, they get buried instead, publicly. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you're terrifying, he said. I smiled. I was always terrifying. You just never looked down the hallway long enough to see it. A slow grin crept across Mason's face. Go build your new ghost story. You've got the keys now. The call ended. I turned back toward the boardroom, toward the faces that used to forget mine. Some wouldn't survive the week. Some were already ghosting their LinkedIns. But a few looked at me like they just realized the floor beneath them had always been held up by women they never bothered to name. And now we were the architects. Lena nudged me. So, history rewritten? No, I said, walking to Keen's old chair and sitting down. History just started telling the truth. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the Coffee Pot strikes again.